and let's say early next week. And I pray that you have an enjoyable birthday. It is always good to celebrate a birthday, whether you are celebrating with a family, friends, or you're doing something solo. I would also like to remember those who are mourning the loss of a loved one, and I pray that you find comfort during this very difficult time. On Thursday, I was not here for The Edge as I attended the funeral service of Malachi Ferguson, who was an exceptional young man here in St. Kitts and Nevis. He is known through his involvement with the St. Kitts National Youth Parliament Association SCNIPA, where he served as Public Relations Officer and later as Vice President. And when he served as Vice President, I had the privilege and honor of serving as the Public Relations Officer. And so we served on the executive at the same time. And we actually became members of the association in 2019. That's where I first met him. And since then, he has been heavily involved with the association, the work of the association across St. Kitts and Nevis. He is also known as someone who had a lot of interest in the field of law, as he graduated from the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, I believe in 2021, with an associate's degree in, or with qualifications in law. That was in 2021, and he then went on to the University of the West Indies to pursue studies in the area of law. But even though he was young, he made a significant contribution towards youth development and towards the overall development of St. Kitts and Nevis. And for me, it was heartwarming to see so many people came out to celebrate his life and his legacy and the work that he did during his time here will not be forgotten. I extend again my deepest condolences to his parents, his mom and father, to his close friends and family. And I pray that you find comfort in the memories shared, knowing that Malachi was an exceptional young man and he did his best while he was here, and he took up space in a good way, and he made a name for himself, and I would definitely say that he made St. Kitts and Nevis proud. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation here on The Edge. Stay tuned.
Attention business owners. This Valentine's season, let ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation help you spread the love and grow your brand. From January 19th to February 14th, take advantage of our exclusive Valentine's advertising package. With ZIZ, your heartfelt message reaches thousands across our popular radio platforms. Make this Valentine's Day unforgettable. Promote your romantic specials, products, and services to an audience eager to celebrate love. With our customized ad solutions, we'll help you stand out, spark connections, and boost your sales. Don't miss out on this perfect opportunity to share the love and maximize your exposure. Call us at 869-662-8203 or email sales@zizonline.com to book your Valentine's campaign today. ZIZ Broadcasting, connecting your business with your customers this Valentine's season. Valentine's advertising specials, January 12th to February 14th. Call 869-662-8203 today.
The views and opinions expressed by participants and callers during this program are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, its management, or sponsors. The station accepts no responsibility for statements made. Welcome back to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and thank you for joining me on the program for today, Friday, February 7th, 2025. It is the end of the week. I would say for some of you, you probably had a productive week. You were able to accomplish some of the tasks that you had set out for that week, and others maybe not. Maybe you were a bit tired or you procrastinated, but you could always try again for next week. And we're heading into the weekend. As I normally do, I encourage you to spend time with family, friends, loved ones, or if you want to do it solo this weekend, it's totally fine. Do what works for you. Now, at the top of our conversation for this morning is the fair revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis is moving closer to becoming perhaps a reality. And this came out of the roundtable discussion yesterday with the Prime Minister. So for decades, the issue of fair share revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis has been a point of contention. But according to Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew, that long-standing challenge is finally on the path to resolution. Speaking during a round-table discussion on February 6th, Dr. Drew announced that the World Bank has delivered a comprehensive report with expert-driven recommendations for a more equitable financial arrangement between the two islands. The report includes economic assessments and financial models, to ensure that revenues collected by the federal government are fairly distributed between St. Kitts and Nevis. The Prime Minister emphasized that this is the first time in history that an expert-backed framework has been introduced to address the issue. Premier Mark Brantley has also been part of discussions with Dr. Drew as both leaders work toward an agreement that guarantees Nevis receives its fair share while maintaining financial stability across the Federation. The government will now engage key stakeholders, including the Nevis Island Administration and the Federal Cabinet, to finalize a revenue sharing model that is fair, transparent, and sustainable. Dr. Drew described this as a new era for St. Kitts and Nevis, pledging that every dollar will be accounted for and that all citizens will benefit from the country's national wealth. As discussions progress and legislative measures take shape, further updates will be provided. So the Prime Minister says that more information coming out of this will be shared accordingly. But according to Dr. Drew, who is also the Minister responsible for Finance, the World Bank has delivered a report on the revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis. As I mentioned, for decades, this issue of fair share between St. Kitts and Nevis has been a point of contention. We have battered and bruised and talked about this thing over and over and over and over in different ways. We've heard different self-proclaimed experts speak on the issue of how they believe things should be worked out. We know what the Constitution says as it relates to the arrangement, but in terms of the nitty-gritty. So while there is a guide, which is set out there in the Constitution, in terms of the nitty-gritty, exactly what for what. This is what the World Bank report, according to the Prime Minister, is referring to. And these are recommendations from experts in the field as it relates to the financial arrangement, beginning with the federal government. As soon as that report is received, I will be very sure to share that with you and bring in a few experts, financial experts, to give their take on it, legal experts to give their take on it in terms of essentially what it means, and to break it down into layman terms, this report between the economic assessments and the financial arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis. But I know it is a topic that it brings out the passion in people, it brings out the emotions in people. People give their different take and opinions on it as to how they believe the matter should be addressed. At times, there are people who do not go as deep as they should. Others look at the issue on the surface, and we have been rehashing this issue now for some time. And so we are looking forward to this report, whether it's going to be published or whatever, but we look forward to this report so that we can look at this report and see exactly what the recommendations are as to the revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis. And I believe everybody is in favor of a equitable share of resources between St. Kitts and Nevis. However, I believe for those who question it, they just genuinely want to know, how is this thing going to work? And I've realized in our culture, people look at you funny when you start to ask questions. It's like, who are you and how dare you ask these questions? And most of the times people are asking questions just to seek clarity, and they want to be certain. They don't want to speculate and say, well, this is what it is and that's what it is. It's 11:18. We're going to open the phone lines and begin taking your calls at 662-8674. I think we have a call on the line. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Devonne.
Yes, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. We have plenty of rain down here, so I'm in bed just relaxing until
all right.
Ready to go where I want to go, Now, Devonne, my little simple question today to ask you. How this fair share go? If the fair share we just the CBI, if the fair share is just money coming from the CBI program?
No.
Or like anybody in the country, okay, any organization or any bank, this government get any money from the tech loan, is supposed to share with the federal government, the Nevis Island administration?
Well, okay.
That's what I want to know.
Okay, we'll put it simply, right? Remember, the federal government is responsible for things like national security, which includes the police force, and then you have the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force, and the Coast Guard, the Fire and Rescue Services, and all of these different things. You have matters that fall under foreign affairs, right? So if it is a matter under foreign affairs or national security or any other matter under the federal government's purview, what this is going to look at is how resources are going to be shared. So whether it is a loan or a grant or some sort of initiative or whatever, if it includes anything with finances, then the recommendations are expected to examine that situation, and it would determine how the funds are shared between St. Kitts and Nevis based on the population size. So it's not going to be a case of 50-50, but more like 60-40. You understand?
Yeah, but Devon, what you know, now, St. Kitts is a bigger population than Nevis. So that it will work out, like, it would work out as equally. It ain't going to work out half-half.
Right.
It's
going to be equitable. So, as I stated, it's not going to be 50-50 because it would not be fair to St. Kitts if you do 50-50, because remember, St. Kitts has a larger population.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be based off of the population size.
So, when the Unity did farm, the Unity College and Government did farm, and Dr. Harris did make the agreement with Mark Brantley, that means that agreement wasn't supposed to make but just one amount.
Mm-hmm.
That agreement wasn't supposed to make but just one amount. The agreement was supposed, when Dr. Harris telling that he will go to the IMF then, that means Dr. Harris was right. Yes, sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so sometimes these politicians mix us up, And if we don't try to get educated and know about these things, we will all get mixed up. Because look at the Seatbelt program. The Seatbelt program going on so long. And we're hearing all these money coming in, spending and do so much a project and some failed project and all these things. And we, the ordinary man, wasn't getting nothing out of it as that. You understand? Only know like something coming from it. And we don't know if we was getting or not. Especially under the farmer administration with Dr. Douglas, the farmer administration with Pam, the People's Action Movement. We don't know. So these are things that we, as the electorate, supposed to educate to. That's how much money coming from the CBA program, how much money they could give the ordinary man or woman, or the lesser class man in this country. Because look at the sugar industry. The sugar industry closed. And up to now, a lot of us who work in the sugar industry, I don't think we get enough. We 4 parents and we still come and keep up that sugar industry. So all these things people are supposed to educate you. We're supposed to get wise up in this country and stop run against the party line. Because Devonne, I always say, when Mr. Grant made the promises 2004, when he said that he'll give up money and the land, I was in the sugar industry at the time, and listen, I did jump in for the see if this going to happen, But people vote against it. They say no. Anyway, somebody will get a chance to call in. No problem. Okay.
Caller, thank you so much for your contribution to the program. The phone lines remain open at 662-8674. That's 662-8674. We have a caller on the line. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Devonne, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, man. How you doing?
And how is the good people of St. Kitts Nevis? By politics, only Timothy was trying to be fair. See? And the greedy man on the other side of the ocean, he been taking and can't be transparent with where he taking. He get money about 3 times before the fallout. Let me show you something, Devonne. This thing must come to an end. And the two, watch it, Devonne. They say that master they done, but they're fooling. Oh yes, Lord, they're fooling. We want to know who fooling who. And he's right. They're fooling. Both of them is fooling. Both of these 2 young men is fooling. They're fooling. Only Timo was meeting the people. Look what he has done. Up to now, none of them can get a roof fixed, and a lot more roof still there to fix. Like Timo was so bad, and he do so much. Well, for heaven's sake, Lord, answer my call. Answer my call. Who fooling who? Devonne, this thing is really rich tonight, since it is a million people, pick 4 people and get the thing organized and go. Well, who fooling who? Somebody feel IMF won't give them more?
No, not IMF.
I'll give them something different to the deal?
Not IMF, Carl.
I better come good, I better come good. Devonne, a caller, an old man, he just like to hear you, yeah? You got your fans, You got your fans. And I applaud to the people in Nevis. When the round table, call in and ask him questions. Call the Joint Prime Minister and ask him questions. Because he got a thing going when the round table journalists are asking questions, he divert somewhere else. And we watching him, We watching him because all of them fooling. Have a good morning, Devon. You take care.
All right, Colin, thank you for your contribution to the program. You're listening to The Edge here in ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius. The phone lines remain open at 662-8674. That is 662-8674. And for those of you who are just joining the conversation, we are on the topic of the fair share revenue or fair share agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis. According to Prime Minister Dr. Terence Joe, the government has received the recommendations, the expert-driven recommendations from the World Bank as it relates to the revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis. It's 11:27. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation here on The Edge. Stay with us.
Attention business owners. This Valentine's season, let ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation help you spread the love and grow your brand. From January 19th to February 14th, take advantage of our exclusive Valentine's advertising package. With ZIZ, your heartfelt message reaches thousands across our popular radio platforms. Make this Valentine's Day unforgettable. Promote your romantic specials, products, and services to an audience eager to celebrate love. With our customized ad solutions, we'll help you stand out, spark connections, and boost your sales. Don't miss out on this perfect opportunity to share the love and maximize your exposure. Call us at 869-662-8203 or email sales@zizonline.com to book your Valentine's campaign today. ZIZ Broadcasting, connecting your business with your customers this Valentine's season. Valentine's advertising specials, January 12th to February 14th. Call 869-662-8203 today.
The views and opinions expressed by participants and callers during this program are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, its management, or sponsors. The station accepts no responsibility for statements made. Welcome back to The Edge in ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and thank you for joining me on the program for today. So people asked, isn't the revenue sharing already mentioned in the Constitution? So if you look in the section 11, chapter 10, section 110, which speaks to revenue allocation. Now, how the revenue is shared: taxes collected in the Federation, which includes both St. Kitts and Nevis, must be shared between the central government and the Nevis Island administration. The amount of revenue each party, that is the government or the Nevis Island administration, gets depends on the populations of St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is what I was getting at earlier. So it would not, in our case, it would not be a situation of 50-50. It would be more like a 60-40, it would be equitable. So in other words, the share is based on how many people live on each island. And the formula takes into account the latest census data, which determines the proportion between the two islands. And so when you're looking at the fair share, you have to include the recent census that was done so that it could tell you how many people reside or how many people live on the island of St. Kitts, and the same for Nevis. Now, in terms of the deductions for Nevis, Nevis's share of the revenue is subject to certain deductions. You have common services. Now, Nevis must contribute to the cost of services that both islands use. For example, things like national security, transportation infrastructure, or education services that both islands benefit from. However, it falls, national security and foreign affairs fall under the purview of the federal government. And Nevis also has to contribute towards the national debt that the central government is responsible for. This is my understanding after going through 110. In terms of the rules for the implementation, the Governor General, acting on the advice of the Prime Minister, has the power to set the rules that explain how this revenue sharing should work. And this includes deciding which services are considered common services, determining how much Nevis must contribute to these common services and the national debt. So you're talking, let's look at the CBI, for example. The CBI is managed in St. Kitts by the federal government. But perhaps you can have a conversation with the Nevis Island administration to say, okay, we agree that if we make $10 million, we're going to give you 4, and we're going to keep the balance, but you're going to have to assist us in the management and the upkeep of this program by helping out with some fees or application fees or whatever the case may be. And then you also have setting deadlines and methods for calculating and making payments. Now, who decides? The rules are not just set by the Governor General alone. The Prime Minister advises on these rules, but the Premier of Nevis also has to agree. So it's not a one-man thing. So the main principle is that taxes collected in the country will be split between the government and Nevis. So that's St. Kitts and Nevis, based on the population size of each island. And the more people there are on an island, the larger its share. Right? That's simple there. The costs of shared services, Nevis doesn't get to keep its entire share of the revenue. Some of it is deducted to help pay for things that both islands use. Debt responsibility, part of Nevis's share also goes to help cover would help to go to cover things like international debt and all of these things. So there is a guide in the Constitution, but in terms of the nitty-gritty, determining what are the common services, looking at the population in terms of the census, these things definitely have to be worked out. It's 11:36, the phone lines are open, and we're taking your calls at 662-8674. That is 662-8674. You're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. And if you are just tuning in, we are on the conversation of the fair share revenue or arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis. And this is in relation to statements made by the Prime Minister at the round table discussion, where he noted that the World Bank has delivered a comprehensive report with expert-driven recommendations for a more equitable financial arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis. The report includes economic assessments and financial models to ensure that revenues collected by the federal government are fairly distributed between St. Kitts and Nevis. The Prime Minister emphasized that this is the first time in history that an expert-backed framework has been introduced to address the issue. One of the callers made mention about the arrangement. I think he was referring to, what do you call it, the Charlestown Accord. He was making reference to the Charlestown Accord. I see we have a caller, so let me stick up in and we'll take this call. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right.
I wanted to try to do something for me again.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me the revenue sharing mechanism that is in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that to me again.
You want me to explain that to you again?
Right now while I'm on the line.
Okay. So the revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis is taxes are collected. Taxes collected in the Federation, which includes St. Kitts and Nevis, must be shared between the central government, which is the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the Nevis Island administration.
Okay, pause right there.
Mm-hmm.
We know that is enshrined in the Constitution.
Yes.
The question must be, is this happening? And the answer to that is no. The Nevis Island administration, the system-led administration, has abandoned that mechanism since 1993, 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has been no revenue sharing of the taxes between St. Kitts and Nevis as outlined in the Constitution. So that clause in the Constitution makes absolutely no sense because it's not been adhered to by the Nevis Island administration. And the federal or the St. Kitts administration has not made sure that Nevis hold up its side of the bargain, what is enshrined in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And so, is it fair for me and you, as brothers, engage in a business? Down the road, I decided I want to have nothing to do with the business. I'm taking out all of my shares. I'm holding all of my shares. Could I argue with you for shares out of the business when I have withdrawn all of mine and kept one for myself?
Mm-hmm. I see the point that you're making there.
And so the issue here, we look at that in the Constitution. Yes, it is there. But it is not being upheld. And so we cannot make that an argument right now unless Nevis is going to go back and do what it's supposed to do according to the Constitution. And that the Prime Minister in St. Kitts will make sure that Nevis hold up its side of the bargain.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the VAT mechanism that we have, is that the same criteria that should have been applied to the sharing of the VAT? The Prime Minister mentioned, I think it was last year, that Taiwan gave us the Federation some money. And he made sure that he gave, I think it's 25% or 20% to Nevis. Why that was not automatic in relation to the sharing of the VAT revenue?
Mm-hmm.
But when you take out all of the expenditures, all of the programs that are there, and you decide to distract them from the overall amount, then whatever net Nevis get 25% based on what is in the Constitution or power-rated based on the population, whatever the population size is, you do all your deductions. And then the balance, we share it equitably. And then when you find that the Prime Minister will announce on his round table that he has that report, and the FS has to look at it, why the Premier of Ministers did not know that the report was there? And now it is that Sinkits alone looking at that, and I have not heard that anybody from the Minister administration is sitting down jointly with Sinkits, going through the report, and so that when we come out, we can come out with a report that is codified by both administration rather than one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I am absolutely troubled by that. The whole thing, to me, is very, very troubling. But we need to get back to the basics and get back and to follow the Constitution, because the Premier like to see that there is not one word or one a punctuation mark was changed in the Constitution. Well, how is it that Nevis is not upholding that significant part that is in the Constitution? Thank you.
Caller, thank you so much, and this is definitely food for thought. The phone lines remain open, and we take this call. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Greetings. Thanks for taking our call.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, February month, when you're born. Because February 6th. Best wishes on your birth month. They call it Black Story Month. We want to wish people of my race conscious Black Story Month. Okay, that call before make a very important point in the scheme of things,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, things are for balance. This will go straight to this one. And as he rightly said, it's in the Constitution, so, I mean, yeah, solid point, So we pray, we want to just here, and set it, Okay, then come off of that. We get some information concerning someone called Cole Palmer, a footballer. He have Sinkits roots, Sinkits News roots, and out there, I think he's played some big teams, big leagues, and he carried the emblem of Sinkits on his boots. Yeah, and people say, yeah, would move that. We support that thing. Even though it could be higher, but boots is our part of football. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
No, the point we want to make is the emblem of a country is very important within the scheme of things. Just like Constitution, just like the anthem, etc. You see me? And we're very observant. And we observe the nastiness here and there at the streets, and amongst them, now and again, we keep an emblem, more than one emblem on the ground between the nastiness. We have a way of picking them up. Now, when we see, we Rastafari, so when we see red, gold, and green on the ground, we take it up to us. Nobody knows what we take it up with higher. The emblem them now, think it's emblem them what we find on the ground. We just wash them out and find use to. We, as we said before, we are Rastafari, we just keep an emblem of Ethiopia around us to identify our consciousness. Because we don't see ourselves as West Indian, not even Kittian or Libyan. He's an African people, and we hold it that. So we start to, we get our meditation to say, well, okay, we're still there on the LOC, we're still there on the plantation. So we get a meditation to put alongside Ethiopian flag, emblem, a flag of St. Kitts and Nevis. We keep the two of them together, And on more than one occasion, someone came by my place of abode and removed the emblem. Sometimes they remove Ethiopian emblem, sometimes they remove the St. Kitts emblem. We want to publicly say that the culprits who are doing that, they must stop, because polite violence
which I see that is, leads to other violence. When you look trouble, you get it double. Polite violence, we get bloody violence. Because if I ever have to see the culprit, blood is going to run. So we are saying this publicly, that the person or persons who are doing that, they must stop immediately. Give thanks to the time. Bless the God.
All right, Carla, thank you so much for your contribution to the program. It is 11:47 and you're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. We are going to bring the program to a close at noon for our newscast. I was commenting on the caller before stated as it relates to the fair share arrangement or agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis, and he spoke specifically to how the revenue is shared, where taxes collected in the Federation, and the Federation is St. Kitts and Nevis, must be shared between the central government and the Nevis Island administration. And I'm saying, caller, definitely food for thought. This is always a conversation that I've been particularly interested in. And as I mentioned earlier, it has always been a point of contention. It brings out the passion in people. It brings out the emotions in people whenever we're talking about the fair share arrangement. What you're saying then, in essence, is if we're going to talk about the fair share arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis, then we must look at it across the board and not be selective in our approach to it. And as I'm here reading 110, just above 110 or slightly above, you have 108, which speaks to finance for the island of Nevis, and it mentions the Nevis Island Consolidated Fund, where it says all money collected or received by the Nevis Island administration, except money meant for a specific purpose, like a special fund, must be deposited into one central fund called the Nevis Island Consolidated Fund, or the fund. And you can think of it like a main bank account where all the general revenue in terms of the taxes and fees, etc., for Nevis goes into. And this fund is used for the island's government expenses. And the laws that apply to the fund, so the sections, which let me say firstly, this is a conversation that we should continue, but it says that the sections mentioned, which is section 70 to 76, are part of the law that governs how money should be handled in the Federation. And these rules, which normally apply to the central government's finances, also apply to Nevis's finances with a few adjustments. So the Consolidated Fund, instead of referring to the central government's fund, the law now refers to the Nevis Island Consolidated Fund. Parliament and National Assembly, instead of referring to the national government's parliament, the law refers to the Nevis own legislature, or the Nevis Island Assembly. The Minister of Finance, instead of referring to the National Finance Minister, the law applies to the person in the Nevis Island administration responsible for finance. And so it is just explaining in detail what it is. So in simple terms, all money Nevis earns or receives must go into a single account. And following the same rules in terms of how it's handled in St. Kitts, the same rules that govern how the central government handles its money would apply to Nevis in that instance. And the only difference is that when the law talks about the government or national institution, it now refers to Nevis's government and legislature. This is an interesting conversation, and it is one that is worth continuing, especially with the Prime Minister stating that the World Bank has issued their report, and we look forward to reading the report and seeing exactly what the expert-driven recommendations are as it relates to revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis. I go back to the point that I made earlier, that it has always been a point of contention, particularly during our elections, where we talk about fair share between St. Kitts and Nevis. It brings out the passion, it brings out the emotions in people, some for, some against, and for me that's fine. Everybody ain't gonna always agree on everything, right? But it has always been a point of contention. When you go back to, you recall the elections of 2015, or leading up to the elections of 2015, you had something called the Charlestown Accord, which spoke to a fair share agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis. The only issue with the Charlestown Accord was that it was not a legal binding document. It was just an agreement between the three parties involved in the Team Unity Coalition, the People's Action Movement, the Concerned Citizens Movement, and the People's Labour Party, where they looked at how revenue was going to be shared between St. Kitts and Nevis, right? But it was not a legal binding document to say, well, this must happen or that must happen. But just for clarity's sake, for those of you who are wondering, yes, the Constitution speaks to revenue allocation, and you can always take a look for yourself. It is Chapter 10, Section 110. It speaks to revenue allocation. It's very easy to find. Just type in St. Kitts Nevis or St. Christopher Nevis Constitution, and you're going to find the information there for yourselves. And then it details how the revenue should be shared, and it's based on the population. But in terms of the nitty-gritty and the details, it is not there. Hence the reason why we've been saying over the years that it needs to be worked out. Of course, firstly, you have to look at the population of both countries. 11:53, the phone lines are open. Call us at 662-8674. That's 662-8674. The phone lines are open, and we are taking your calls. I think we can take at least one or maybe two more calls before we wrap up the conversation for today on The Edge. But if you're just tuning in, we are on the topic of the fair share arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis, and this has come about because the Prime Minister, during his roundtable discussion on Thursday, made mention of a report from the World Bank on this issue. I promise to follow up this conversation with you guys. I'll get a few other persons to come and give their take, looking at the legal side of it and the financial side of it in terms of what exactly does it mean, explain it in simple terms, to ensure that we are all on the same page. But to wrap up, I believe we are all in support of fair share. But it is how it is worked out. For me, I don't want us to get too emotional over the conversation and then we start to throw words around that we ought not to be throwing around. There are some people who tell you, well, Nevis needs to go and make his own money. And I whenever those comments are made, I listen. I really listen. Because I think under that comment or behind of that comment is people trying to say, okay, Nevis has a Nevis Island administration and there is no St. Kitts Island administration. As a matter of fact, the Constitution does not recognize the island of St. Kitts. It recognizes the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and Chapter 10 recognizes the island of Nevis. And so while there are, which I'm not disputing, resources to be shared between both islands when they come in through the federal government, the Nevis Island administration also has responsibility over a number of things. And when you look at Section 106, which speaks to responsibilities of the administration, it talks about responsibility over health and welfare, labor, land, education, airports, seaports, and all of these things. And so, yes, there's administration, and some argue the administration needs to do what is necessary to raise funds on the island of Nevis. And this is separate and apart from the central government. You've been listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM for Friday, February 7th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining me on the program for today. Short but good conversation with you, the listeners, and we'll follow up this conversation next week or very soon as it relates to the fair share arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis. Until next time, you guys, stay safe, don't drink and drive, don't text and drive, and please, I beg you, take it easy on the road. On Monday, I'll be welcoming Dr. Jensen Morton, the Director of Health Institutions, and we will be speaking on upgrades at the Joseph and Franch General Hospital. I believe this afternoon they will be unveiling the designs for the new hospital, the Climate Smart Hospital, and that revelation or the unveiling ceremony will take place this afternoon at 4. So see you on Monday. God spare life. You guys have a good one. Enjoy your weekend.